There's a new TV show called Secret Genius, and at first glance you might think, oh, they're just looking for people to be super high IQ or something like that. But what really attracted me to the program was the idea that it's hidden, it's unknown to, even to the people that are actually taking part in the program. The idea that maybe they've been let down by the education system and that they're not really sure about what their potential is or their capabilities, and that's the part of the story that I'm really interested in, rather than the games and the stuff like that. So that's my angle. That's what I'm talking about. The way it links to my work is that I'm helping people who have trouble speaking up, particularly in the classroom. That's where it starts, and but maybe in the workplace too. But that's my rabbit hole. That's what I went down. But I have my story which relates to this, is that I left school at 16 and I found out in 2021 I joined Mensa, so I'd done an IQ test. But up until that point, I thought I was stupid, but not in a nasty way, just in a, I'm not that bright, that's okay. What am I going to do? What's my potential? And weighed against that was the fact that I was feeling really frustrated and bored and confused about the jobs that I was doing and like where I fit in. So when I watched this program, I was particularly curious about the type of people that were going to show up. Now, first of all, Alan Carr was saying at the very, very beginning about what does a genius look like? And he's kind of joking about it. But for me, it's a really interesting question because he was saying there's a million people. I don't know where he got a million people from, but there's a million people in the UK that have this super high intelligence, and maybe they don't know and maybe other people don't know. So this question of what a genius looks like is important because we don't know what people look like. And a lot of the time when you're in the education system, you're relying on teachers to spot something in you. And clearly people are falling through the gaps. And as I say, that was particularly interesting. So for me in this program, Ollie and her story just really connected to me. And she's clearly a favourite for me. She's a bit of a potty mouth, but she's definitely my favourite so far. If you haven't seen the program, they're doing sort of regional heats. They've got people from the north, and I can't remember how many people they had at first. They had about 12 people, and then they introduced them really quickly and told you a little bit about their backgrounds. One person I think was a tree surgeon. Ollie is what I would say was a paramedic, but she said that she works on the ambulance. There's somebody else who was a shepherd, worked as a shepherd. There's other people. There was one lady who had a dance school, somebody who used to be a nurse. So although you may say, oh, they've got professions and different things that they've done, I think what they were trying to say is that they're not the typical, here's a brain surgeon and here's a rocket scientist and they were trying to make out that these are relatively ordinary jobs that these people have. And some of them have qualifications and some of them don't. Anyway, so they've got this pool of people, quick introduction to them, and then they're given these different tasks and games. And the first game they were doing was when they're on their own. And then they have to pair off and do a game together. And after each set of games, they whittle the numbers down. And the idea is that the top three, I think it is, go through to the final. So we've only had episode 1 now. What I was going to say, in terms of a reaction, my first thought was really glad they didn't use those tests for me when I was doing a test for Mensa. I wouldn't. They were saying, oh, there's a quick way to do this game and then there's a slow way. And I was thinking, I'd have just been glad I could find any way to do this task. I wouldn't have been particularly quick at any of those. So I was kind of glad that they didn't do that kind of test for me. I was interested in the games, as in what were they, but not seriously to engage and to try and complete the game at home, because there's a QR code and you can do the game at home if you want to. I wasn't so interested. What I was interested in is how the people spoke about themselves, and then there was a surprise element of how they spoke about each other and to each other that really kind of warmed my heart. And the idea that these people, so when they're talking about themselves, these people are there doing this show to figure something out about themselves. And that really related to me, because when I did the IQ test, I was confused and frustrated, and I didn't understand why I wasn't happy, and why I felt like I hadn't reached my potential, when everybody else around me seemed to think, well, this is your place in the world, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And I was like, I do lots of stupid things. The idea that I might have more intelligence, the way they measure this, it was very confusing. I had confusing experiences as to whether I was capable of more or not. And it was really interesting to me just how uncertain they were. Now, a few of them felt that they were more intelligent, but they still had a lot of self-doubt. And that, as I say, and then one, Ollie, bless her, got a bit teary and a bit emotional a few times. And I really felt for her, because for me, it was a huge turning point for me. But again, it's not something that I can always talk about with people, because they think you're trying to show off about something. I was trying to figure something out about me. And that was why I wanted to do the reaction video. I was thinking maybe there are some people out there that have seen this Secret Genius program, and there's something in them, a curiosity is, could that be the answer for them? And then you feel like, well, who am I to do an IQ test? Well, say there's lots that are freely available. You might want to go the Mensa route, but there's lots that are freely available. Just do it for yourself, just out of that curiosity. It doesn't have to be a competition where you're trying to beat somebody else. You're trying to get some information about yourself to explain yourself and some of the things that have been happening to you. And I really wanted to encourage people that if you've watched this and you thought, I'd say maybe if some of the emotional stuff kind of resonated with you, the idea that these people, there's things about themselves that they don't completely understand. And that's what they're there for. They're there to try and figure out where they belong, or explain different experiences. And I think already, or even the people that have been knocked out of the competition, I think they've already learnt something about themselves. So it's not a case of, oh, it's terrible, it's a catastrophe, I've lost in the first heat or anything like that. I think there's one person in particular that was called Joanne, and I'm also a Joanne, and she doubted herself and redid the test and ended up taking a lot longer, and then got a spoiler, she got knocked out, but you'd have watched it by now. If you were going to watch it, I'm sure you're going to watch it by now. And she got knocked out, and straight away you could hear her say, that's it, something's got to change. I can't keep second guessing myself. And I thought, oh, I'd be so curious to speak to her and see what's happening to her in the future, about how she treats herself and how she thinks of herself and how she advocates for herself within a group. So the first thing is about how people show up and all the doubts and the questions they have. That was one thing. The surprise, which is what I just mentioned, is how the participants were interacting amongst themselves, and how important it was. Let me just think how to say it. How important it was that it didn't feel competitive, as in, for me to win, you must lose, and I'm going to do whatever I can to smash you into the ground, kind of thing. They all seem to be very encouraging about the other people, very complimentary, wanting them to show something the best of themselves. And there was one point where the guy who'd got the fastest time had to choose his partner, and he turned to Ollie and he said, I choose you to be the partner. And he got the first pick. And I was just so pleased. I saw her smile and I thought, that's what she needs. She needs something. It makes me feel a bit emotional now. She needs somebody to pick her first, to say, you've got the, I believe in you. I believe you've got these talents and abilities. And I just felt like that was exactly what she needed to hear. Now, she was then going to feel a lot of responsibility because working in a partnership, and she clearly has a lot of doubts about her abilities. But she needed to be picked. And then later on there was other pairs, and a generosity and a kindness, the way they spoke to each other, just made me feel like it was a surprise. I wasn't sure that I was going to see that kind of thing. I wasn't sure what the program was going to be about, but it was a bonus for me, in that being a member of Mensa for me has been something that I generally keep quiet about, because it can be seen as boasting, or people making, dismissing the IQ test as in not being relevant. And I thought, well, you're missing the point. The point is that it mattered to me, that I was confused and frustrated, and I didn't understand why I felt like that. And to have that piece of data was really, really valuable to me, and was a huge, it completely changed the course of my life, because after that, I then started going to night school, and then I went to university when I was 24. So it mattered to me. It was a really big deal, and it wasn't something that I was doing to try and be better than anybody else. I was doing it to get information about myself. And I don't know why teachers or nobody else had picked it up before. In my 30s, I thought, well, maybe it's because I'm not speaking up, and maybe it's because I'm not advocating for myself. So I fell down a rabbit hole learning about speaking and blah, 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 blah. And then I've been doing that for 20 years now. I'm well down the rabbit hole. I mean, teaching this and helping other people with speaking up. But again, this program is bringing up so many memories about how I felt at the time, getting that Mensa, the letter from Mensa about being a member. So I'm gonna watch tonight's episode. I'm gonna do another reaction to it. It's kind of coloured by obviously my experiences, but if you have any questions, if you happen to find this and you're curious about Mensa yourself, or IQ, or even these people, or anything else, put your questions below. Take care. Bye.